You are running for Merced, let me see if I can get this accurate here, Merced Board of Supervisors, District 2.
That is correct.
Okay, good.
Yes.
How many districts do you have in Merced County?
There's five districts in Merced County. I represent District 2, which is the majority of Merced proper.
Have you run for Board of Supervisors before?
Yes, Athens. I ran in 2008. The incumbent supervisor had just finished 5 terms, and she decided not to run again and left the field wide open. So I jumped in the race in 2008. There was 5 of us that jumped in, and I didn't make the cutoff after the primary election in June.
Now, this year, you just said primary election in June, but this year the voting actually takes place in June. Is that correct?
That's correct. The primary election is June 5th. And the general election is November, of course, which will elect a new president. In my supervisorial district, there's only 2 candidates, myself and the incumbent. So whoever gets 51% of the vote, one of us will, that will be it in June. And there's another supervisorial district in Merced, District 4. There's 3 people challenging that district, and if the incumbent doesn't get 51%, then he or the top 2 vote getters will go on until November.
Okay. I think I understood all that.
Yeah,
it's a lot of math and percentages. But tell us the area of District 2, because you were explaining that to me the other day, and it's kind of hard without a map. But if you can give us cities of where it is in the north and south and east and west, it might be helpful.
Yes, Athens. It's basically a big rectangle. It goes from Bellevue North Bellevue Road to the north, which is out by Lake Yosemite. And to the south, it goes to the new Walmart Distribution Center area, what we call the old drive-in. To the east, it goes to R Street, which is a major road there in Merced, and then down to 16th Street, which is right by the freeway in Merced. So it's just basically a big rectangle of most of downtown Merced and then a large residential area.
So you kind of overlap with businesses as well as a little bit of rural and in between urban area as well.
That's correct. There's not a lot of farms or rural area, if you will, as opposed to some of the other districts, or the other districts, but it's based on population. So because this has the most populous city in the county, it's kind of a smaller district, and it has a lot of the city of Merced. A lot of people don't realize they have a supervisor representing them in the city because they think, well, I'm in the city, I'm not in the county. But every city in Merced, and really every city in California, is represented by a supervisorial district.
I was talking with Jim DiMartini, who is a supervisor on our west side here in Stanislaus County, and he was explaining to me just that kind of the county is over the top of the city. Not that they are in charge of the city necessarily, but it's like you were saying, that every city is within the county. How many cities do you have in Merced County?
We have 6 major cities. We have, if I can remember them correctly, we have Atwater, Los Banos, Dos Palos, Merced.
Your time is almost up.
Yeah, there's a few. And we have what they call the Merced County Association of Governments, which the Board of Supervisors sits on. And then there's 1 member from each of the major cities in Merced County. And there's 6 major cities, and so there's a group of 11 people that sit on the Merced County Association of Governments. That's considered a COG, or a coalition of governments, and we get the money from the state and then disperse that. So the County Board of Supervisors, not only the Board of Supervisors you sit on, but you also sit on the Merced County Association of Governments. There's some interesting things coming up in their purview with the toll road. You might have heard about the toll road on 152, the Los Banos bypass. That's something that's coming up. I'm against the toll road. I don't believe that we should have to pay to get to work, or farmers should have to pay to get their product to work. What happened there is they want to build this bypass around Los Banos, and they don't have the money to do it. So toll roads are a very popular vehicle by which to gain money and revenue, and that's one of the things they're looking at. San Benito County and Santa Clara County have not completed their portion of Highway 152. So they need some of our money in Merced County to complete the environmental impact report. I don't believe that we should give them any of our money. Our money is very hard fought to get here in this county, so we need to hang on to that as best we can.
Speaking of finances and money for transportation, You know, one of my favorite hot topics is the high-speed rail.
Mine too.
Tell us a little bit about your platform for your campaign and also your opinion about high-speed rail. Where do you stand on that? Is it just kind of like, oh, it's okay if it goes in or not?
I'd say not. When we voted on high-speed rail back in 2008, the electorate passed it by just 5%. I think if it was brought back to the voters now, knowing what we know, it would probably not pass today. We voted on a $9 billion bond issuance by the state of California with some matching monies, well, it's quite not matching, about $3 billion from the federal government. And then we were hoping to have private investment come in and pick up the balance of the build-out, which was an estimated $48, $49 billion. We had a new estimate come out in November of last year, and it was up around $100 billion. We've now had a revised estimate come out this month, and now we say it's $68 billion, which is touted as a savings. I don't see how that's a savings.
It still sounds like $20 billion more than the original $48 billion.
Yeah, I was old school math, and that's how I look at it too. So I think that we're trying to be sold a bill of goods. The completion date was supposed to be 2020, and now we're talking about 2029, 2030. We don't really know when this is going to be completed. The financing is not firm. We have the original $3 billion from the federal government. And people need to understand that that came out of a larger $10 billion pot, that only $3 billion is left. There doesn't look like there's going to be any more federal funding on the horizon for quite some time. So we're really kind of on our own. The theory is we need to start this project to be able to utilize this $3 billion of federal funding before it's lost. I say let it go, let it lose it, because the bigger issue is how can we afford a system if we build it? I say we can't. The ridership numbers are not confirmed. They're expecting 25 million people to ride this thing. The only Amtrak, the total Amtrak system carries 27 million. So to say that California is going to have as much as the rest of the nation, I think is not realistic.
Well, I've heard that if the high-speed rail goes in, it's going to create jobs. And I hear this a lot, jobs, jobs, jobs. What is your opinion about that?
Well, we have to remember, Athens, it's a transportation bill. It's not a jobs bill. Obviously, there will be jobs created in just building it, but it's not meant to be a jobs bill. It's meant to transport people from point A to point B. The idea originally was from Bay to Basin in 2.5 hours. And we had a plan to do that, and we've now gotten away from that plan. So I think the jobs estimate is, while it's true that there will be jobs, it's not a self-sustaining thing where these are jobs that are going to contribute to the system and pay for itself. It's always going to be an albatross. I realize that we're going to have to subsidize public transportation to some point. When Amtrak was created back in 1971, the railroads had essentially given up for-profit passenger rail service. They also transported a lot of the mail up until 1966. The government took that away, so there was no profit in it for the railroads. Pullman Company, the company that made the cars, they went bankrupt in 1969. The handwriting was on the wall that passenger rail service was not profitable in America. Congress stepped up, appropriated, I think it was $500 or $600 million to Amtrak, and there was supposed to be a public-private partnership. Where have we heard that before? Just recently with high-speed rail, for the viewers that may not know. But the public-private partnership never materialized. They went from 380 routes down to 150 routes to try to consolidate the system to be the most profitable system so that somebody would step in. That was 40 years ago. They celebrated their 40th anniversary last year. So the reality of it is there isn't an incentive for the private industry to come in without heavily subsidizing this project, and that's you and I.
I understand that the high-speed rail, if they get their EPA reports in and can find the money from somewhere, will be built not along Highway 5, but right through some of the most prime farmland. And I was going to ask you how being a county supervisor would affect your one vote or your input would affect how that high-speed rail would go through the farmland.
Well, I think you're exactly right. The Merced County Farm Bureau has come out recently in opposition to high-speed rail in Merced County because of the destruction to farmland. We only have so much valuable prime agricultural land here in the valley. I like to say we could grow anything here in this land. It is some of the most fertile land in the world. We really need to be careful where we put our transportation corridors through that land. We're talking not just a couple of railroad tracks, we're talking a half-mile wide swath through the heart of prime farmland. As you and I, as I've said before, I think that a more logical route would be along the west side of the valley, along the I-5 corridor, to duck into Fresno and Bakersfield and then back out to the Union Station. That would make more sense. We need to get a way to get over the grapevine. But the loss to prime farmland and agriculture and how it's going to impact the valley or my county is just one part of it. The city itself, the city of Merced, which I also represent, they're talking about putting 14,000 parking spots in downtown Merced, basically wiping out every business from G Street up to R Street in Merced to put these mega parking structures in where we feel we're going to have commuters coming and living in Merced and commuting to the Bay Area and to Los Angeles. I just don't see it. I just don't see it. We went through the housing bubble and we saw where that got us. We need to realize that agriculture is number one in Merced County and really the valley. That's what's got us on the map and that's what sustained us. So as a supervisor, I feel that I need to keep those priorities in mind. And while people tout jobs, there's also a maintenance center we hear about where they're going to repair the trains. Every wide spot in the road between Bakersfield and here wants that maintenance center. And you have to ask yourself, is that worth getting a plum of the project when the rest of the project is an albatross around the voter's neck? I say no. And I think that people are short. I mean, obviously we need jobs. People are concerned, but this is not the way to get it.
You mentioned prime farmland. Anyone knows you can't grow anything without water. And you've got some water issues going down in Merced, like here in Modesto. And you call your irrigation district MID as well,
Yes.
Merced Irrigation District. What is going on down there with your water?
Well, I always like to say that in California, whiskey is for drinking and water is for fighting over. And we certainly do a lot of fighting over water. I always envious of Modesto's motto, water, wealth, contentment, health. And if, the first thing is water. And without water, you don't have the other three. Where food grows, water flows, or water flows and food grows. I mean, there's all these little catchy phrases, but it's true. And we can't live without water, and we have to manage that resource effectively. To try to have more impoundment or storage is very hard regulatory-wise to get. So the chances of building more dams are difficult. So we have to look at what we can draft from the aquifer, what we can use as surface storage, and conservation, of course. So MID, Merced Irrigation District, is working with the county under a regional water improvement plan to basically map out every square mile of Merced County and tell us what's underneath it, what's in the aquifer, how that water moves through the aquifer, where are the best places for development, where are the best places for agriculture. We had a lot of developmental pressures. The first time I ran in 2008, we were just coming off the building boom. And one of the concerns was we didn't have a comprehensive water study to know what was under the water, where we could put these developments and not impact agriculture detrimentally. There's a difference between a survey and a study. A survey, you kind of look out the window and, hey, it's not going to rain today. A study is, why isn't it going to rain today? So we are in the process now of doing a water study, and this will help a lot in the future planning of Merced County.
Do you see that your water is going to be sold?
Yes, our water is being sold. The Merced Irrigation District has entered into some agreements to sell water for research purposes, for environmental purposes. It's a real touchy subject, because if you're a farmer looking for that water, right now we're basically in a water rationing because of the drought. There's going to be another meeting here in mid-April. MID is going to make the final determination on the water deliveries to their customers. Right now, as it stands, it's 4 acre-feet. That's it. There's some districts, El Nido and Planada, they're getting 2 acre-feet, half of that. If you grow rice, you need 6 acre-feet minimum. So there's a lot of farmers that aren't going to be planting this year just because of the availability of water. The people that are getting 2 acre-feet, they're a little upset because they see the other 2 going down the river, literally. And MID is in a position where I don't understand completely all of the politics involved, but I know that they feel they will publicly tell you that they feel they need to do this to make inroads with the non-governmental organizations that are that they're asking for relicensing of their powerhouses up in Exchequer and Don Pedro right now.
Do you think that there are more maniacal forces at work to keep the water from going where the farmers need it?
I think there are. I think that, quite frankly, we have a supply problem. If we had more impoundment and we had a better rainy year, we probably wouldn't be talking about these issues. But the fact is we are, and we're going to have to face them in the future. Again, I don't know enough about the internal workings behind the scenes to know all of the reasoning and why this water is being sold. But it gives the impression, I don't feel that people are being completely forthcoming with the reasons why. They say that, well, we get money in for the district and we're able to make capital improvements and those type of things, but that water grows crops and grows food, and how the money that we may get on a water sale, who's to say that wouldn't be tenfold if we gave it to the farmers to use to grow crops? And those are the kind of cost-benefit analysis I have not seen.
Do you know if any of your people will be doing a study on that as far as 1 acre foot sold to, let's just say, down the river, okay,
right,
is, say, $10. But you give that or sell that 1 acre foot to a farmer and he sells it by way of crops or reinvesting it locally would be not just $10 but $100. Has anybody done a study like that in your county?
Not that I know of, and that would be a real good cost-benefit study, to see if it's worth selling this water out of district. I mean, the district was created to serve the farmers, and we've gotten convoluted in that with these relicensings and with these NGOs and different things coming into play. MID right now is going through relicensing of their powerhouse, Exchequer and Don Pedro. The Don Pedro powerhouse is a 90 megawatt facility. Exchequer is 10 megawatts. There's a cap in California at the legislative level of 30 megawatts is considered green energy or renewable energy. So the water that flows through Don Pedro at 90 megawatts doesn't count. But when that same water flows through Exchequer at 10 megawatts, that counts as green energy toward their credit in their grid. Because both MIDs, not only provide irrigation water, but they also provide power. So they have to provide 30% of renewable power, wind, energy, hydro. Hydro is renewable. If hydro isn't renewable, I don't know what is. Rain evaporates, it falls, it renews itself. But there's a mindset that 30 megawatts, over 30 megawatts, we don't want to call it renewable. I don't understand that. So there's some legislation in the legislature right now to get this cap, this 30 megawatt cap removed. So when you come up against these kind of seemingly unlogical scenarios, you kind of see where the districts are put in a rock and a hard spot. Logic kind of takes away from it, where you originally, we have water for the growers. Now we're taking care of fish and salmon and certain things. I mean, obviously we need to be good stewards of the environment, but it has to be a balance. And I think if we get to the detriment of the growers, we've gone too far.
Getting back to County Board of Supervisors, does the Merced Irrigation District have a board of directors like the Modesto Irrigation District? And if so, how would the county supervisors be involved with your MID?
Well, they do have a board of directors, like Modesto Irrigation District. The only involvement we have right now is through this regional water management plan, where we're trying to develop the resources, or identify the resources out there and how those will be integrated into the county's general plan. Beyond that, we give MID support in their relicensing efforts. We support them in their efforts and want to see them get relicensed. When these folks ask, well, what is MID doing for the ratepayers or doing for the people? On the electric side of the fence, for them to be able to supply cheap energy and not have to go outside of the grid and buy power that they don't need to buy, essentially, that's one way MID is helping our valley and our businesses, is providing cheap hydroelectric power.
Do you know what your cost is, the kilowatt?
I don't know what the kilowatt hour per cost is.
It's been 20 minutes, and I finally found a question you don't have the answer to.
I'm sorry.
I'm going to write that down.
Well, I don't know everything.
Well, switching gears from water, I want to talk about education and unemployment. We'll talk about education first and then get back to the unemployment rate in Merced County. What is your education statistics in Merced County? Are they pretty even with the national average, or are you a little higher, a little lower?
We're a little higher. Our education statistics just came out last weekend, coincidentally, and we're at 23% graduation rate, on a dropout rate, excuse me. And to me, that's completely unacceptable.
That seems kind of high to me.
It's very high. When you figure they start ninth grade, 23% of the kids don't make it to 12th grade. It's billions of dollars, Athens, in lost revenue and wages, earning potential of these people. And that obviously, raises the water level in the pond, where we can attract better employers because we have better educated folks. I think the county needs, as a supervisor, I would like to see us be more diligent on truancy, making students, attend school, holding parents accountable so that they are there to learn. We spend a tremendous amount of money on education, and there's absolutely no reason for nobody not to take advantage of that. And a 23, might as well say a quarter of the kids not graduating, is just unacceptable. And so we have to raise our education level in the area. We're not going to, we have the University of California, the 10th university campus in Merced. It's a jewel for us. If we didn't have that, compared to when Castle Air Force Base left in Atwater, it left a big void in the area. The University of California has brought jobs and a bit of a future for us that way. So the question is how could we retain some of the folks coming out of that UC system instead of just leaving the area once they graduate? So I think we need to have a better educated workforce, and it needs to start in school, in high school, grade school.
How do you see that happening? I mean, as a county board of supervisor, how would you impact your county, and specifically your district, to help raise the awareness of the dropout rate as well as the enthusiasm to keep those children in school?
I think you have to tout the benefits of education. Graduating high school is a really big deal. Going on to college, that's another step. Obviously, university education is another step, but you have to graduate high school. We have to let people know that's just the minimum that they have to do, and we need to promote that and hold people accountable. We have to be tough. It's kind of a tough love thing. If you see truancy or kids out on the street, I mean, when I was going to school, that wasn't tolerated, and nowadays it just seems, well, they don't want to go to school. That's unacceptable. We can't do that. It affects us in ways we don't even see: crime, education, poverty, social services. If we just had better educated folks, we would alleviate a lot of those other problems down the line.
Speaking of which, that kind of dovetails with my next question, which is unemployment. What is your unemployment rate in Merced County?
Well, we have the official and the unofficial rate, and it depends. As far as the county, I'm not sure of our county rate. I want to say it's around 18%, 19%. It just came down a little bit seasonally. They say because we've had a mild winter, there haven't been as many people laid off as normally. I think that's across the whole nation. The unofficial unemployment rate I've heard is anywhere from 25 to 30%. Some of our smaller farm communities like Dos Palace over on the west side, high as 40%. So we have a tremendous unemployment rate. We have a lot of people that have just given up working. I noticed the national rate came down to 8-point-something%, but they say there's millions that aren't even looking anymore, and they're not counted in that rate.
Yeah, I don't know where that is. The what is it, 8.6?
8.8 or 8.9. I think it's 8.8, and I don't know where they came up with that.
Yeah, I have no idea, because Modesto is still very high with unemployment as well. And like you say, maybe they've just stopped looking.
They have. There's millions of people that they ran out of their benefits. You have the 99ers that had 99 weeks of benefits. Once they drop off the roll, there's no way to keep track of those folks. They're not turning in a claim form. They're not. We don't know where they go. And so you have this ghost force out there that really we don't know what they're doing. And they say it's the new normal. The new normal is going to be 10%. So that's hard to get used to. If you think a tenth of the workforce is going to be out of work, I don't like that as the new normal. I don't accept that.
I know quite a few people who actually live with relatives who have, for the last 20 years lived on their own. And now there's a lot of I don't know what to call it, where people are moving either back in with their parents or parents moving in with their children. Do you see a lot of that happening in Merced, where people are kind of?
Yes, it's sad. It's just a telling of the times. You know, home ownership used to be a dream. It was turned into a nightmare with greed. Quite frankly, people got greedy. They looked at their homes as an investment, something that they could make quick money on. It used to be that you bought your home, you paid on it 20 or 30 years, you paid it off, you went into retirement, maybe you left it to your kids. Now people have irreparably screwed up their credit with foreclosures and stuff. They're not able to get another loan. Housing is some of the most affordable housing that we've seen in years right now, but people don't qualify. You have to have a bulletproof FICO score. You have to have a lot of cash down. So the only people who are really coming in, and I say bayoneting the wounded, are investors from out of the area that have a lot of cash that can go in and pick these properties up. So by virtue of that, you have a lot more people renting. Rents are still very expensive. People can't afford rent because they've screwed up their financial situation, so now they have to go back home or move into a group situation where 2 or 3 families get together. Like I say, home ownership, we really kind of lost sight what it was. It was a slow, steady progress towards home ownership. And what happened at the turn of the century, you were seeing equities increasing per week more than people were making at their jobs. That's unsustainable. In Merced County, we went from 125,000 average median income. We went up to 375,000. 5% of the people could afford homes at 375,000. Guess where we're back down to? 125,000. 85% of the people that qualify can qualify for a loan. But that's the problem. They have to have a job. You have to have a job, and you have to have great credit. There's 23 million homes in America that are upside down in mortgages. They have no equity. And typically, in a recovery, you would, small business is the way this country was founded. And so when you start a small business, you go in and you encumber your home. You take out a loan. You borrow some money. Well, if you don't have a house to borrow against or anything to encumber or to take a loan on, how are you going to start that small business? So not only has the dream of home ownership been destroyed, but the dream of starting your own small business has been destroyed for millions of homeowners. And unfortunately, here in the Valley, we see a disproportionate number of those because we saw such a high rise. And as you know, when you climb up really tall, the fall is much worse.
How do you see it getting turned around?
Well,
I mean, it's pretty bleak. I mean, our unemployment rate is up, our dropout rate is up, the value of homes is down. How do we turn it around?
Well, I think we have to just go back to basics and go back to what we know. We have to, the inflation and run-up in home prices that we saw, that was once in a generation. We won't see that again. There has been some reality brought back to the marketplace. The financial markets are still very unstable. I don't know the good answer. I think locally we need to learn from our mistakes and not grow too fast. When the growth spurt comes again, the UC Merced is going to hopefully at some point cause growth to happen again. Take the vacancies that we have now; those will be absorbed, and we will start seeing growth again. We just have to do it in a more logical way. We just can't. Greed is a hard thing. It's one of our 7 deadly sins, and it's hard sometimes not to succumb to that. But you just have to hopefully not forget history and realize that we can't make the same mistakes we did in the past. Like I say, agriculture is our base. Our base is not growing homes. Our base is not high-speed rail. Our base is not parking structures for miles and miles. We have to get back to work, and there's nothing that suffices for good hard work, and that's just what we have to do. There's no easy answers. There's not going to be any easy answers. We can't tax our way out of this problem. The governor's answer is, hey, we'll raise taxes in November and everything will be fine. I disagree with that strategy. We're taxed to death. There's really no more wiggle room for people. We're closing parks. We've put fees on everything in the world. I just don't see where we can. More money is not the answer to me. I don't think we have a revenue problem. I think we have a spending problem. I think we need to be diligent in how we spend the resources we have.
That sounds great.
Well, it sounds, like I say, it sounds easy, but it's very difficult to implement. You have to have everybody on the same page. You have to have everybody, and suffering actually makes those, some people come to the well, so to speak, because you don't have anything. I mean, as a supervisor, I would lay the county's wallet on the table and say, this is what we have. I have nothing to hide. You know, you're a steward of the people's money. You're there to oversee, and you need to have vision, and you need to be able to see in the future. The incumbent that we had that currently sits in the position I want to attain, he was a mayor for 8 years, a council member for 8 years, and approved a lot of these developments. Matter of fact, there wasn't one he didn't approve. I think you need to have a vision to see where this is headed. And I'm not saying I have a crystal ball, but I'm a little more cautious that way.
Where can we find you?
You can find me at CaseySteed.com, my name, CaseySteed.com. I can also be reached at my Gmail account, Steed for Supervisor, at gmail.com. And I just would encourage everybody to vote on June 5th. And if they have any questions about me or my candidacy, to call me or get a hold of me.
Thank you very much, and I hope that I talk to you on Friday.
You certainly will. Thank you, Athens, for having me on.